Welcome to Flosstube and Variety Show number 91. I'm Emily Williams in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and today is Friday, September 8th, 2023. We have had the last 2 days, the hottest days this summer, and in fact, both of them, the recorded temperature, the temperature of record was 100 degrees. And I really can't remember us hitting 100 degrees over the past more than 5 years, I would say. I do remember back in the, early 2000s, we had a summer where 13 days in the summer, it possibly was 13 days in July and the first part of August, we had temperatures of 100 or more, but not recently. So I'm very thankful for air conditioning. So Flosstube means cross stitch and variety show means something else. And we'll see what that turns out to be. But cross stitch first. I will show you, I think a very small amount of progress on Hannah Campbell, 1838 by Hands Across the Sea. I'm doing this on 36 count ballet slippers, which is a fabric by Fox and Rabbit in Soie d'Argent and a little bit of 103. And I know for sure that I did the crown, and the very top, that black blob, is the very top of a bird's head. And I think I carried on the border across the top a little bit. And I might have done this motif in here, this one. I'm sorry, I can't remember. It's interesting, I have a little calendar grid that I write down what I work on each day. And even though I didn't have this written down at all up until 2 days ago, when I know I worked on it, I was pretty sure I had worked on it. So I don't really know. But let me just make one comment about the crown. Yeah, I don't know what you can see. There is a very light colored tan floss in there, along with that blue, the darker blue. And I note that that same color of tan floss is used down in here and somewhere in this area, but not really anywhere else. So I'm not sure exactly what to do about that. It doesn't show on this fabric, but neither really does this light brown color, but it shows better. I don't know, I may make a switch there. Now I'm trying to, yeah, I did plan, I really did, but I didn't plan my space very well, so hopefully we won't have things crashing to the floor. I will next show you Mighty Acorn by Blackbird Designs. This is in their book, Winds of Autumn. And I'm doing this, working on this on the first weekend of every month for Blackbird Design Weekend Stitch Along, BBD Weekend Sal. The hashtag is in the description field. And what I did this time is I did this acorn right here, and I did the, no, I think maybe the acorn was done. I did the squirrel, did a couple of acorn tops in the border, and I took that tree trunk up. And those are 2 acorn caps. So the last weekend, just last weekend, that's what that means in English, in America anyway. Last weekend was the first weekend of the month, and it was Labor Day weekend, but I'll tell you in a little while, we had activities that day that meant that I pretty much didn't work on it very much at all. But that's all right, because the activities were fun. So this is Sampler 193 by 2x2 Stitch Art. And you'll recall that I'm working on this in 16 count white Aida with DMC 777. It's interesting, people have a Sunday stitch, some stitchers do, and they work on a special piece on Sundays. And I find that this is my Sunday stitch because if I'm doing online church, it takes very little of my attention. So that's approaching 50% done. It'll get there, I think. So let me move this to the bottom because I want to say more about it. All right, here's Mathilde. This was in the Letters from Europe box by Hands Across the Sea, the one that was in honor of Nicola's 60th birthday. And here is where I am. So I'm pretty sure that this is what I've done since you last saw this was I had to fix that box in the middle where her name is. So I started putting her name in there, and I realized that the box wasn't high enough, that I had made it one layer too short. And I didn't notice that when I was making it, but I did notice it when I was trying to make those lowercase letters tall enough. So I had to rip out the bottom of the box. And you know, I'm very tight on the red thread. So I managed to be able to salvage almost all of the red thread that I pulled out. And so I was able to restitch mostly with the original red thread. And then I added in another maybe length and a half. So that was okay. I mean, it worked out fine. And then this blue motif here, I also did. And I put all the blue dots in the box. I think I had not done that the last time you saw this. So it's so interesting because when I look at the picture, I like the chart. I look at the chart itself and it's so angular that I don't really like the looks of some of these elements. For instance, this right here that I just did, this one. But when I look at it stitched, I like it. I guess you see it better. Maybe I'm seeing it better farther away. But anyway, that is still fun to work on. There are about 5 more, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 8 more. 8 more rows of various border patterns that go in there. And then it's done. I'm really happy with that and enjoying it. Winter Rose Manor. I have in my notes that I worked on this probably 5 days of the last 2 weeks. I didn't do a video last week. And for having worked on it for 5 different days, you would think it would be more obvious what I accomplished, but nonetheless, I think that in this past 2 weeks I filled in the rest of the windows, and I took the house siding up, filled in around the cardinal, and I have 1 line of stitching above the upper story windows. There are 2 lines, and then the roof happens. So it's coming, it really is. And once I have finished the roof, it's a bunch of lighter stitching over here, and then this massive basket of flowers, which we all have baskets of flowers on our roofs, don't we? That is one of the things I really like about samplers, antique samplers, as well as some of these modern or contemporary sampler-esque things, is the disproportionality of the elements. I really like that. Now, finally, I'm going to show you the Scarlet House's Janet Thompson 1838, which was the exclusive through the Shepherd's Needle. I'll show that a little longer. Shepherd's Needle in the Homespun something or other Facebook group. So I bought it, and I bought the kit of 36 count Sleeping Bear and the NPI silks, and I did start it. So I You know, it's always a nerve-wracking under any circumstances to start something, I think. And I was concerned about making sure I had enough fabric, so I did a lot of calculations and measuring and all. But the real issue here is that I decided I would start with the dark green, which is this line that sort of zigzags through the border. And it does not go to the corner, that dark green. So I couldn't actually start in the corner. I had to start some number of stitches away from the corner and hope that I would end up right. Well, I counted and marked, and one of the ways I do that kind of thing is with regular sewing thread in a contrasting color, enough contrast so that I can clearly see it, and I will count over, well, actually stitch a long stitch 10, you know, every 10 stitches worth into the fabric with a little blip so I can count easily. So I was able to do it, and I think it's right. I think it is. Now I should, the smart thing to do would be to carry on and fill out, make that border go all the way around. I don't think I'm going to do that. And I will tell you, if you look at this carefully, or even casually, you'll note that there are a lot of, all those flowers, those angular flowers in the border, they're not a lot that are the same as each other. I mean, there obviously are some that are the same as each other, but they're not even symmetrical around the design. And that's a good thing, because this one is as charted and this one has a mistake in the color placement. And you know what? When I studied it, I decided it's fine. I doubt that Jane Thompson, age 9 years old, would have taken it out unless she were forced to by her governess or whatever. So that is what I have to show you in cross stitch. And interestingly, it's almost like a whip parade, because the only things that I'm working on that I didn't show are the Christmas piece, nativity scene, which I will show sometime soon. I work on that on the third weekend of every month. And my 2 full coverage pieces. Now I haven't done anything on either full coverage piece, the tiger one or under the roof, because there's been other things going on that have made me think that I couldn't probably concentrate adequately, especially for under the roof, whose turn it is, but nothing happened on that. So what has been going on, you may wonder? Well, over Labor Day weekend, our son and daughter-in-law came with their 2 giant Great Pyrenees puppies. They're giant Great Pyrenees puppies, is what I should say. And they came Sunday afternoon and they left Monday afternoon. It was sort of a trial visit to see how the dogs did here and how they did in a house that wasn't their house, with people that, in the case of Byron and me, they've met a few times, but I'm not sure they think we're their people. And our friend Ann was visiting, and so they haven't met before. And Cindy came over to meet them and to see Scott and Natasha, and they definitely hadn't met her, and everything went really well. So, as you may know about Great Pyrenees, they are a guard breed. They are livestock guarding is what they're bred for. So their thought in life is, if you are part of my herd or my flock, then you're fine. And if you're not, then I need to guard against you. So the way Scott and Natasha are managing to introduce them to people is, if they are with the dog and there's somebody that they want the dog to say, this is my person, they shake hands, or they give, put their arm around the shoulders or something. And it is amazing how that signal helps those dogs, because they did that with Anne and they were okay. They didn't bark incessantly at her. And then once she sat down in the living room, so she was sitting as all of us were sitting, then they were very accepting. And the same happened with Cindy, whom, there was no reason for them to think that Cindy was anything other than an interloper, except that there was the handshake. So it was really, really fun to have the dogs here. They are very large, yes. And they are not used to seeing people walk around on sidewalks because they live out on a farm. So there was a lot of barking and a lot of racing from window to window. But it worked out fine. I think that overall, it was a very successful visit. Now that did mean that I did 0 cross-stitching on Saturday and Sunday. In fact, we did 0 of almost anything except gazing at the dogs and discussing the dogs and that kind of thing. I mean, we did have some very nice meals that Anne prepared for us as well, but that was mainly the experimental visit. So it was fun. The other thing I've been working on the past 2 weeks, and this is really the thing that I knew would take my attention away from cross-stitching, which meant that I would not do a video last week, was I've been finishing the quilt that I've been making for Anne for the past 18 months-ish, since it was promised to her Christmas of 2021. So I did finish it, and I'll put a picture of the quilt on a bed in our room, right up here. I'm just gonna flash it up because I'll talk more about that. I'll actually show more pictures in the next Galloping Horse video, which might be before the end of this month. But I did bring this one piece of it. This is the pillow piece. Just to have something to show. So what I did this past couple weeks is I finished the piecing of it, and I think that the last time we did a Galloping Horse video, the main quilt was actually on our quilting machine, so that was easy and quick to finish. So I did the binding of that, and we also decided, Anne and I, many discussions and working out what would be best, we decided we were going to do a quilt as you go seam join between a part that would go up under the pillow and the main part of the quilt. So I created that and quilted it, and then we spent basically a day over at the studio working out how to make that join, what strips of fabric were needed to be created to make the, I'll call it the seam facing, maybe you might call it that. And it turned out fine. It turned out really well. I mean, much better than I thought it would. And also I ended up doing the stitching because it was my sewing machine. I'm familiar with how it works. So Anne supported the weight of the quilt and I did the stitching, and it was fine. I did the hand stitching of the last, making the facing attach, and that worked fine, looked nice. So it was very successful. And again, at the next Galloping Horse video, I'll put up some more pictures than just showing you that and the little quick thing that you saw. So what else? Well, one of the things that Anne is working on is, I'll say, designing some socks for herself, knitted socks, I mean. And in the course of that, she has a couple of books that she brought with her, which are about designing for socks or designing for knitting. Here's one called 200 Fair Isle Motifs, and this is in color. And if you just flip through it, you'll see that it shows a picture on one page of the knitted result in various colors, and then on the facing page, it shows what stitch pattern there is, and then ways to how you would lay out your yarns in order to get an effect like the photograph. And very interesting in terms of design, color placement, the kinds of things that, like here, this is on a yellow ground. You use white as your main color through the middle, and that gives this a different look than if it were all completely on the yellow ground. And I think that there's some lessons to be learned from this about how one could do cross-stitch designs, borders and motifs and things like that. So, and in fact, I'll put this information in the description field. I'm going to have to put the whole thing in the description field because I can't remember what it is, but there's a designer from Holland, Denmark, somewhere over there, who does sort of field and ground or pattern and ground ideas in some designs where she has squares of a certain color in the background and the squares change colors. And then over that, she has patterns which have a certain amount of transparency with related to the squares that they cross as they are, as they go across the chart. And it's quite an interesting effect. I think that I can see the appeal of working on that. So another book that Anne has is this book called Selbu Mittens. This is Norwegian traditional mitten patterns, and this book is fascinating. So it has a lot of history and sort of methods of how to do the mittens and people who've made the mittens and how the sizes happen and how you do the joins for the thumb and so forth. But what the richness of the book from my standpoint and from the standpoint of a cross-stitch designer is it has the pictures of mittens showing the back of the mitten as well as the palm of the mitten, which have different designs in this tradition. And then it shows the charting of how you knit those designs in order to do the mittens. And these have pointed tops to them because they are for mittens, which this type of mitten has a pointed finger part, it comes to a point. And fascinating, just fascinating. And so one of the things that Anne said, here's something you'll be interested in, Emily. Well, sure enough, on this page, you can see the charting for moose from traditional mitten patterns, moose and other animals, dogs, rabbits, birds. Yes, I did. I charted a moose, as you may remember, for her cross stitch, the purple sampler, and it was fine. I used some clip art type thing and I created a silhouette and it was fine. And here are some more actual moose from traditional Norwegian, where there are a lot of moose in Norway. But there are, border patterns and all kinds of things. And this book is laid out by the different parts of the mitten. So the cuff and the palm and the back, and then the little borders that go on the gusset, if you will, that attaches the front and back to each other, and the thumb. And it's very, very, very interesting book. I'm not really mostly interested in knitting mittens, but if I were, I would get this book. Yeah, really very interesting. So I'm going to probably take some pictures or do some quick charts, copy some charts from here before Anne takes the book away because it's so fascinating. In the course of our conversations, hers and mine, about design and motifs and things, I have gotten really eager to get going on my own self-designed project. I'll call it a sampler. I feel as if, similar to the way I worked on the purple sampler, which I did for her, which, as you may know if you watch videos from last year, from 2022 is when I worked on that. It was very much an improv thing. I just decided the things that I planned were, I needed some band sections and then a section to have motifs in it, and then bands and motifs. And some of the motif sections were alphabets. And then I wanted it weighty enough at the bottom so that it would feel complete at the bottom. So those were really the considerations that I had, but I didn't know from the top what was going to happen at the bottom. I only knew sort of generally the proportions that it was going to have. And it worked out well, and it was fun to fun to stitch. So I feel as if that's really what I need to do with my own piece. Maybe block out you know, I need a part this wide and a part this wide and alphabets like this and tree over here and so on. But then in terms of what goes in the different parts, just sort of wing it and see what happens. And I think I'll do that. Now I won't do that between now and the Great British Sampler weekend. And truth be told, I won't do it this calendar year because I realized a few things. So first of all, I mentioned that the Mathilde sampler comes from Nicola's birthday box, Letters from Europe. She's putting out a new box this fall, which is called Words of Wisdom, I think, and it's $12 samplers maybe, with some small projects based on them, plus some other things, goodies in the box. The pre-order starts on their website, Hands Across the Sea, at noon UK time tomorrow, which is 7 a.m. Eastern time. Well, that's doable. And the price, I think she said, was £250, which is around just over $300 US dollars. So that's doable. But Emily, I saw on Instagram somebody posted a picture of a tote bag for cross stitchers, which says something like, I buy cross stitch as if I am immortal. Well, I am immortal, however, not in that way. So it's silly. So I'll let you know the next time I do a video whether I even attempted to get one of those boxes. I shouldn't, right? I shouldn't, because how long do I think I'm going to live anyway? Yeah, not to mention my quilting, not to mention. So I probably won't try for that, right? Emily, don't do it. Now, another thing I wanted to mention was Sampler September is a thing, which I sort of knew about this. I've never done it, and I'm not doing it this year because that's just not how I am geared for stitching. But it isn't as if I'm not working on samplers. I have Mathilde going, and Jane Thompson I just started. Winter Rose Manor, I don't know if that's a sampler or not. Maybe it's just a picture. But Hannah Campbell is definitely a sampler. So, you know, what is that? What's that all about? I don't know. But I'm not doing Sampler September. So what do the next few months hold? Well, the rest of this month, Anne is here for a lot of it, and then at the end of it, I go to England. And there will be a project that's related to the event that will be given, and who knows what else I will acquire one way or another while I'm there. So, yes, there's that. Whatever that is, I'll want to work on it, I would think, in October. Also, soon, I think that I saw on the Evertote website the Christmas, holiday countdown, I think it's called, 2023 box is being mailed, and that is the collaboration between Caroline at Evertote in Canada and Jacob with Modern Folk Embroidery, and Roxy Flosstube, the dyeing company. Those three are collaborating for a second year on a Christmas box, and I have pre-ordered it. So that is being shipped, it will come. The idea of that is you're supposed to stitch some part of it every day in December. So that's December. Yeah. I think it's fairly safe to say that other than a couple of little gifts I have in mind, I am not going to start anything new this year. other than the Great British Sampler Weekend project or something related to that, and this thing in December. I think that's it. Yes, Emily, repeat after yourself. That's it. No more starts. Yeah, I don't know. Probably. I'll probably stick to that because I feel as if now I'm sort of at my sweet spot of numbers of things and amounts of choice, even though there's so many great things I would like to work on. But it's interesting, having finished Anne's quilt, I went up and put some things away in the sewing room, sorted scraps from non-scraps and of the leftover fabrics, the pieces that were possible candidates for the quilt that didn't end up in it, and the leftovers from what we did use. And just in the course of putting that away, I touched other projects that are in the dream phase, a couple that are in the planning phase, one or two that are actually underway that I haven't worked on. I have a commission quilt I'll be working on, not until after the trip, but probably October and November I'll be busy with that, and beyond. I mean, it isn't due until probably 1st of March would be plenty of advance time. And I have many projects and plans up there. A friend of mine, actually a supervisor of mine where I worked, who was one of our pastors and a friend of mine, did a series of talks once on how to manage your time, which is a topic I'm very interested in. And he had some very good categories, I felt. He talked about they weren't called phases. Well, anyway, there was the planning thing, the planning segment, which you can imagine what that is. You decide what it is you want to accomplish. You set down what your resource needs are going to be, what time frames. You plot out your steps and that kind of thing, the planning segment. And then there is the production segment, where you actually do the thing. You craft it. That was the crafting section. So you actually take your resources that you assembled and you create the thing that you had planned to do. And then in some categories, there is a performance phase. For instance, if you are giving a sermon, that was a topic that he was interested in, or making a presentation or giving a class, then there's the actual presentation, the how you convey this to other people phase. But that doesn't come into play with cross-stitch or quilting, because you're not really performing a quilt. You're planning it and you're crafting it. And then finally, there is the maintenance phase. And the maintenance phase is where you take all the materials and resources that you had gathered, that you used some of, that you have leftovers maybe, and you organize them, you put them away, you reorganize and clean your workspace so that you're ready to move to the next planning phase. And so I feel as if I did a little bit of the maintenance phase post Anne's quilt the other day, and it's now time to move into the planning phase or the crafting phase for something that's underway. So it's very exciting. It's sort of bittersweet to finish a major project, but it's also satisfying and exciting because you get to do something different. You get to do something new, and the person or the use for which you'd planned the project that's just finished gets to begin. So it's a great thing. So my table is a mess, but everything that I plan to talk about has come out of my mouth, and probably things I hadn't planned to talk about. So that's all I think for today. I hope you have a great week. I think I will probably make a video next Friday. If not, it'll certainly be the following Friday. So at least one more video in September. I will not be doing a video the very last day of September because I'll be in England. And I will not be doing a video the first Friday of October because I'll be in England. But I will after that once I get back, and I'll have lots to tell you. So that one you might want to plan on being possibly longer than average. But anyway, that's all for today. Many blessings to you, friends.